I think I just became the background character for another person's glitch. Posted by The Karma Don't Matter. This technically happened last night, but I was just starting a graveyard shift and am only now getting it all down. I work at a gas station chain with only numbers in its name. We're just outside of a large chunk of suburbs. None of that middle of nowhere, like we aren't exactly near any other businesses. But we are rarely completely dead for hours at a time. It was just past midnight, and with everything going on in the US right now, not a lot of things other than gas stations and bars open at night anymore, so it was a slower evening. I was the only one in the store, and a car pulled up to one of the 2 double-sided pumps out front. Pretty standard, white 4-door. I'm not great with car brands, but it was a little nicer. Like upper middle class and probably only a few years old. A woman gets out and starts walking towards our door like she's in a daze. Legit, this woman looked like she saw a ghost. She wanders up, sort of freezes at the door for a second with a 1,000-yard stare before opening it and coming in. She didn't go looking for anything, didn't start shopping, just sort of stood inside for what felt like ages. Again, bars are still open, so I think maybe she's a little drunk or had a rough night or something. So I give the usual, welcome to our gas station. Let me know if you need any help finding anything. And she finally notices me and immediately asks me the weirdest damn question I have ever been asked on the job. You can see me, right? Yeah, like, what else do you say? She breaks down crying in the middle of my store, so I'm already headed around the corner to see what's up. I have my cell phone out in case I need to call the cops or something for her. I get her to sit down on a nearby pallet of soda, and I'm grabbing her a bottle of water, and after she catches her breath a little, she tells me, I thought I had died. Again, I'm thinking maybe she is on something, but she's a middle-aged woman who looks like a standard local suburban housewife. We're a pretty boring township without your average junkies like you'd find closer to the city. So she asks if she can call her husband to pick her up and wait with me. She has her own phone and does so, not really telling him anything either, just where she's at and if he can come get her. He says he'll call an Uber and be there as soon as possible. Now we're waiting. So far, nobody else has showed up, so I'm keeping most of my attention on her, and eventually she starts to explain to me. I was driving home from dinner with my coworkers, and as I'm driving through the nearby intersection I recognized, a truck ran a red light and hit me. Now, her car is still at the pump without a scratch on it. She goes on to say she remembers her car being pushed into a pole, going airborne, and then nothing. I tried to calm her down, letting her know that her car is out front and it looks fine, but she insisted that she completely blacked out, woke up in an ambulance for a split second, passed out again, and then woke up again in the driver's seat of her car at the intersection, waiting for the light to change. Perfectly fine. This whole thing freaked her out so badly that she drove to the nearest anything, us, just so she could get out of the car. Her husband eventually showed up to get her. He asked if I had any idea what happened, and even though she sort of explained to me, I just shrugged because no, I had no idea what was happening anymore. She reluctantly got into the passenger seat of the car and he drove them back home. That was hours ago, after which I worked an entire shift at the station trying to wrap my head around what the absolute hell I had just witnessed. Strange Song from the Forest, posted by Brooke. A couple of years ago, I lived with my parents still, in a very small town that consisted of only a gas station, post office, and a church, and many farmhouses. It's a small town about 30 minutes from a military base. My parents' home is about a mile down a gravel road from the main highway and only a mile from the center of the town where this church, gas station, and post office are. One night, we are hanging out on the front deck while my little sister and her friends get some senior photos done in the front yard. Seeing as we have about 2 acres of yard and we're kind of in a bowl surrounded by woods, it's a beautiful place to take photos. It's about the golden hour, which is right before the sun goes down, and it's kind of starts to get a little cloudy like a storm is rolling through. But everyone is still outside hanging out nonetheless. But as time goes on, It looks as if the storm is building up and it's getting pretty windy. So we rush over and help the photographer and the girls gather up all of the equipment and props they were using to take photos. And by this time, it's starting to get dark anyway. Well, it starts raining a little, and the wind is picking up a bit. So all of the girls run inside, as does the photographer with the camera and whatever equipment they could all carry, but leaving a framed backdrop outside that me and my mother told them we would take down and put up in the rain so everyone else could get inside. So, as me and my mom are struggling to disassemble the frame from the backdrop while getting a little wet in the rain, we hear a faint sound through the woods. Sounds almost like music, which wasn't very odd because right through the woods about a mile away was the highway, and right across the highway was the church. So it wasn't very strange that we would hear music or singing in that direction. So here we are getting the frame and the backdrop packed up and thrown onto the front porch. And from the first time we heard this singing or music, only 10 seconds has gone by. And we heard it again. And once again, we don't think much of it, and we're still going into the yard to grab any other random things left out there like stools or someone's shoes, etc. Well, another 10 seconds goes, and once again we hear this singing, which by now it is a little bit louder, and we can now tell it is singing, and it's the same 4 to 6 notes over and over again. So it's like someone is singing a short tune over and over again, but only in ahs. So, like Ariel, the Little Mermaid, would sing type deal. And so at first, like I said, it was so faint and sounded so far away, we really thought it was the church. But at the end of the last note, it would restart back over to the first ah note, and this time would be a little louder. And so every time the tune would restart, it was a little louder and sounded a little closer. And so by now, we're finished picking up the yard and completely mesmerized by what we're hearing. This tune getting louder and louder each time it is sang back over again. And to give you a visual, we're standing by the garage, facing into the yard, which is about an acre long, and looking out toward the tree line, which through this tree line, like I said, was the church across the highway. So it's almost dark, but still light enough to see the tree line, and this tune is getting louder and louder, slowly sounding as if it's coming closer and closer. But at this point, it definitely sounds like it's coming from inside of the forest and no longer from the church. So me and my mom start talking about, okay, maybe there are people in the forest chanting this song or something, because where we live, there's been reports of cult activity in the woods. So naturally, this is both of our first thought if it isn't coming from the church. But one thing we can't explain is the sound the voice is actually making. It doesn't sound like a group of people. It doesn't sound like 20 different voices coming together, harmonizing, singing in the same notes over and over again. Instead, it sounds like one person, neither male nor female. Yet, it's almost as if this one person has been cloned 20 times and 20 of the same voices are coming together, harmonizing, singing this tune. That's what was most creepy about this. And obviously the fact that this is happening at all is creepy as well. So here we are almost paralyzed, staring at the tree line, listening to this Ariel-esque over and over again, getting louder and louder as the 20 same voices start the tune over. So by the end of the last note, it restarts. And when it does, it sounds louder and closer than before. After about 10 times of this mysterious song playing over and over again, getting louder and closer as it plays, it sounds as if the 20-person cloned singing group is right on the tree line, just standing behind the trees. And I don't mean I can physically see anyone. It's just the tune is so loud at this point. It's as if it's coming from right on the tree line. And of course, as soon as the last note ends, it starts back over to the beginning and is even louder now. And this time, it sounds as if it's surrounding us, coming from all directions and no longer paralyzed. Me and my mom are now in fear. and we both look at each other and sprint to the front door and shut and lock the door behind us. Both in the kitchen now, breathing heavy, looking at each other, trying to understand what it is we just experienced. We are completely and entirely frightened and also amazed. We both heard the same thing, the same exact thing, 20 cloned voices, neither male nor female, singing the same 4 notes over and over again. With every beginning of the tune, it gets louder and closer, and eventually is so loud, it's literally surrounding us. To this day, me and my mom haven't found anything like it on the internet. Nothing that even comes close to explaining what it is we experienced. I haven't come across another person's experience that even comes close to what we heard. It's like whatever we heard and experienced is so unique. But I've done so much research, and still years later, I cannot explain any of what we heard. And so here I am, typing this here, so maybe find at least one person who has experienced something similar or has read something that is similar to this experience. In mythology, in someone's person account, on another forum, anything. It's just one of the most mysterious things that ever happened to me. And the fact that my mother was standing with me, hearing the exact same thing with me, at least lets me know that I, in fact, did hear this, and it was 100% real. In the Sky, posted by Smoking Kitten 33. So me and my boyfriend were driving home last night, and I looked up and I was totally shocked because I saw something that kind of looked like the moon, but it was huge. It was like 3 to 4 times bigger than what the normal moon looks like. This thing was really big and orange. It looked like a planet. I thought maybe it was the sun, but the sun was setting behind us. And honestly, if it was the sun, we'd all be burned alive because it was so big and close. So as he's stumbling to get my phone out of my purse and I'm driving to try and keep it in our view, it starts like going down under the trees. So I chased it a little bit, and by the time he gets the camera, it's behind the trees. I keep driving to where it's at, and then when we finally do find it, it's gone. It looks like the regular moon, but this moon is really small again and white. It was a full moon, but it wasn't what we just saw. I don't know if there's an explanation, if anybody knows, like maybe something reflected off of something in the sky. I don't know. This thing was big. It wasn't the sun, and honestly, I don't believe it to be the moon. Just one more thing I forgot to add. Once we noticed it, and we were like, what is that? And started making a big deal out of it, that's when it seemed to start going under the trees, like it was moving, like it didn't want us to see it. I'm not saying it was conscious or anything. It was just really weird, because it was still. Until we started like making a big deal out of it, and then it seemed to want to vanish. Almost as if the something noticed that we noticed this object. If that makes sense.